Hey everyone, today I'm here in the vegetable garden and I want to just walk you around because it's been a while since I've shown you anything that's happening here. In fact, I think the last video we did on here was just about how I was building the raised beds, or maybe at the end of I think actually at the end of fall I did do sort of a quick check-in because it'd been a while and the project sort of fell off the radar. Just to bring you up to speed, this vegetable garden is something I started thinking about probably, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. And it's one of those ideas that was percolating for a long time. And by the time I actually got around to be in a position to do it, I knew exactly what I wanted, but I wasn't going to settle for anything else. So it turned into this giant project. We actually started it about a year ago. And you can go, I'll leave links for you to all the stories I wrote about the entire process, as well as links to the previous videos I've done. But basically we leveled the whole area. We built the garden beds. Then we had to dig out we hired somebody to dig out all the soil between the garden beds. And then we laid down gravel. And then we finally got a fence like in fall, almost winter last year. So that brings us to where we are today. So this is really going to be my first year of real growing in this garden. And actually, if you see in front of me here, we've got some growing going on, although not vegetables, tulips. These 4 small beds in the middle of the garden are places where I grow sort of cutting flowers. And last fall, I was really excited to plant a whole bunch of tulips in here because it's been a really long time since I've been able to grow a tulip because we really have a big deer problem here. So it's just not even, there's no keeping deer away. As soon as your tulips pop up, they get nipped off. So I'm really looking forward to a tulip show here soon, I hope. Anyways, I just thought I'd walk you around the garden, show you a little bit of what's going on so you guys can get a feel for it before we really get into it. And then I'm working on one little project that I think I'll show you some of too. So let's start at the entrance, which is what I'm working on today. Actually, we are dry fitting the gate. You can see that we need to do a little shimming on it. And the gate is not going to remain this clear cedar. Something's going to be happening to it, which we will show you at another time. But I'm really excited about the gate. This is something I saw on Instagram. A designer had designed a gate. It's actually Kate Marker. Let's give credit where credit's due. Totally inspired by her design. And I had somebody make me a gate that's like that. So I am working on making sort of an entranceway here. But in the meantime, come on in. So if you haven't seen the garden before, basically it is 4 by 10. No, it is 8 4 by 8 beds that I grow vegetables in. In the middle are 2.5 by 5 foot beds for cutting flowers. And the new item in the center, which you can see right away, is the stock tank, which is going to become a water garden this year. I've never done sort of a container pond kind of thing. Never done that before. Very excited. There's very little growing in these beds right now because it's too early to plant most things here, but thought I'd just quickly walk you through. First of all, this bed, I healed in all kinds of boxwoods and a few other things that I did not get planted before winter. So this is what I do with anything that doesn't get planted before winter. I heal it into one of my raised beds and it works really well. You can see all the boxwoods look great. Over here, everything is a little bit of a mess because we've been working on projects, but this is fairly exciting. We've got some beautiful mesclun mix here. Everything I do have growing in here I have covered up with some frost fabric, fleece, whatever you want to call it. But just to give it a little protection because it's still been quite cold here. So that is pretty exciting. I'm going to pick some of that for a salad. Isn't that pretty? The rest of the beds, most of the rest of the beds, I've put plastic on just to help warm up the soil. The soil really compressed a lot. You can see, if you look over here, you can see how the stain doesn't go down far enough. That's because last year I had these beds filled to the top. And that's very typical with the raised beds. The soil does compress over time. So I'm going to get some new compost in my compost pile. I used it all up last year, so I'm waiting for compost. So I'm going to get some compost and just top off all the beds before I planted them. But in the meantime, the soil is warming up. There was ice on top of this bed this morning. And then I have the where the tulips are coming up, which is very exciting for me. I am really looking forward to that color. Over here, I do have some peas growing. I don't know what they're going to look like under here. I haven't actually checked on them lately. They are going to need to be sort of freed from their confines here soon. Oh, they're looking pretty good, actually. These are all things I started inside and then transplanted outside. I do not have a problem doing that with peas, by the way. This bed is garlic, which is all starting to come up, which is exciting. And then down here I have onions. These are all onions. I started these on January 31st in the house. I planted them out maybe 2 weeks ago. They're a little yellow right now because they've been covered up, and I think they needed a little water. You'll notice though that I planted these. These are several onions all in one hole. So I am trying this year this idea of multi-planting. And the idea is that you maybe get small, you will definitely get smaller onions, but you'll get a lot of them. I don't need 1 pound onions. I'll take smaller ones. And as we go along here, I'll be able to pick some of these to use these as spring onions. So in the end, I'd probably like to get down to maybe 5 onions per hole. And like this one is, I mean, 1, 2, I could probably pull 2 or 3 onions out of there to use as spring onions as we go along here. So I do not have the drip irrigation turned on yet in this garden. And then this is the back door. That's not very exciting. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to do here. So if you look along here, I have these in-ground beds. This is all going to be for fruit. And in about maybe even next week or the week after, I'm going to be getting a espalier apple and espalier pear for this center. I'll grow it right up that post centered between these beds. This is kind of a wider walkway here. So those will be going on either side. And then I think I'm going to espalier some currants. That is an idea that I hadn't thought of, but when I talked to Lee Reich, who's an author of several great books, he mentioned doing that, and I'm smitten with the idea. In the back here, this is a little bit sad. This back wall, I was planning on doing a Belgian fence. In fact, I still am planning on doing a Belgian fence back there. And if you're not familiar with a Belgian fence, it's an espalier technique in which you grow trees at essentially a V, and then you plant them very close so they create this like diamond pattern. And that was all part of the plan. I had the trees ordered, and then the company that they were coming from said they didn't have them for me this year. So I don't know what happened there, but it's a little bit of a bummer. So that will wait for this year. So I'm going to make a really, really simple sort of landing pad here, just so that there's not mud kind of through this doorway. And I just want a nice flat area when you're coming in. All of what I'm working with here is blue stone. This is all blue stone that is recycled, actually from my grandmother's house. Several years ago after she died, we ended up having to tear her house down because it was too close to, she lived along Lake Michigan up on a bluff and the bluffy roads, and it was, within a few years it would have fallen into the lake. So it was not a safe situation, and so we tore down the house, but before we did that, I grabbed all of, she had sort of a blue stone staircase going up, and I grabbed all that stone, and I've been using it for several years now. There's some in the path out to the garage. This is the last of what I have. Fortunately, there's some big pieces in here. So I'm just going to recycle this and just use this. I'm not sure how this is all going to fit in here, by the way. I'm just going to kind of figure it out as I go along. And I'm not going to necessarily lay this like a proper path. Normally when I lay a path, I put down like paver base, set everything, do all that. We're basically sitting mostly on sand here. That's the soil, particularly in this part of the yard, is really, really sandy. So I am just going to set these in well supported into the existing soil, and we're going to call it done. I'm not going to muck around with all that other stuff because not everything has to be a major project. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to keep the camera on and we'll let it roll. So it actually turned out kind of good. These pieces in the front here sort of created an arch, which I did not expect was going to happen. And I also have a little bit of an arch back here. This is a little funky over here. If those pieces end up looking weird, we might just pull those. But it just seemed like I had them, and it was something to just kind of ease that corner. So that's the back side. This will all be grass. And then once we get in here, I've left some of the gravel exposed in the corners here because that's where climbing roses are going to go. So I have to figure out some way to sort of contain the rose and keep that away from the gravel. So I'm not sure if I'm going to put some kind of edging down or what I'm going to do, but I want to do something so that the rose, I can mulch that rose really well. And we'll clean up all this gravel and even that all out once that's done. But that's just kind of an update on the vegetable garden and what's happening, and just a little update on how I built this little, what should we call this, landing pad maybe. So anyway, I hope that was a little bit interesting to you just to see what's going on here. And if you're doing something in your own garden, let me know what it is. It's kind of that time of year when we do these little projects, and it's nice to have this one checked off the list. And ever so slowly, we are getting towards a finished project here, so that makes me happy. Hey, hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Catch me in the next video.